Clerk of the Board, would you kindly call the roll?
Freeholder Carter.
Present.
Freeholder Estrada.
Present.
Freeholder Hudak.
Present.
Freeholder Jallo.
Here.
Freeholder Kowalski.
Here.
Freeholder Mirabella.
Present.
Freeholder Wright.
Here.
Vice Chairman Granados.
Present.
And Chairman Bergen.
Present.
Chairman, you have 9 freeholders present.
Thank you. Clerk of the Board, would you please lead us in prayer and salute to the flag?
Humbly we ask God, the giver of peace and the lover of charity, to give the entire family of nations true agreement with his will, and to grant the light of his spirit on all who work for justice and peace. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk of the Board, would you please read the statement of compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act?
The Chair wishes to announce that pursuant to the requirements of New Jersey statutes annotated, Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 10 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting with the Board of Chosen Freeholders of the County of Union has been given by mailing the annual meeting schedule for the year 2016, along with periodic changes necessitated by circumstances, to the newspapers circulating within the County of Union who are designated to receive such notice, and by posting the annual meeting schedule for the year 2016 in the Administration Building, and further by filing the annual meeting schedule for the year 2016 with the Office of the County Clerk.
Tonight's better.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. At our regular meeting next week, we'll approve communication. At this time, I'd like to call on Vice Chairman Granados and Freeholders Kowalski and Carter for tonight's presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to call forward the Union County St. Patrick's Day Committee to the front, please.
You have time? Yep. It's a big committee. Usually a big group.
And on behalf of myself and the entire Freeholder Board, we want to thank each one of you for maintaining the culture and heritage of the Irish community, not only in Union County, but throughout the state of New Jersey. So I just want to say thank you and continue the amazing work. And our Freeholder Linden Carter and Freeholder Betty Jane Kowalski have a couple words to say.
Well, this is just one of the highlights of the year to have our Irish representatives here and to be ready to get all revved up for the parade, and I'm especially pleased to have a fellow Cranford resident, the first Grand Marshal from Cranford, I believe, Frank McGovern, and of course I know Kerry and the rest of the committee, and you're doing wonderful work, so looking forward to a great parade, and thank you.
It's a pleasure to have everyone here today, and really pleasure to be able to walk with you all in the parade in the next couple of weeks. But it also shows the diversity that we have here in Union County. And congratulations on continuing the tradition, not only for such a great parade of Union County and in Union, but really throughout the state of New Jersey. So congratulations.
We'd like to present a resolution to Frank McGovern, Grand Marshal for 2016.
Thank you. On behalf of the Union County St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee, We'd like to thank the County Board of Chosen Freeholders for their support, which has been long coming to us. We're grateful for everything. We wish for everyone to have a great day. Please come out and march with us on Saturday, March the 12th, as we celebrate our Irish heritage and keep the tradition alive. And thank you for helping us to be able to do that.
Our next resolution is to carry Ricky for being the general chairwoman for 2016. As a member of the Porch Lake Committee for Elizabeth, I know we strive to be like the St. Patrick's Day Committee every single year, and you guys keep setting the bar higher and higher, so keep up the amazing work.
Sure. Thank you to the Freeholder Board for having us here tonight. Thank you for the resolutions. Most importantly, thank you for your continued support, not just from the Freeholders, but through everyone throughout the county. It really is a team effort, and it's really great to have so many people and so many families come out and enjoy our parade. I want to give a quick shout out to my high school classmates back there. I'm very proud always when I see you guys. I get to see their picture on the county wall all the time, and I tell my kids that I went to school with you once. I won't tell any stories, I promise. But I'm really proud of the great work you guys are doing, and so thank you guys. We look forward to March 12th and having you guys come out and march with us.
And the third resolution goes to Jessica Cunningham, adjunct, who there's always a right-hand person in making sure that everything goes properly, and I know the St. Patrick's Day Committee is happy to have you by their side. Say a couple words.
I'm just going to say the same thing that Frankie Kerry said. Thank you for having us, and we hope to see you guys out on March 12th.
I did, I tried. Lowney foiled again. Yeah, try that one. No table. No table.
I'm going to take a minute here to set up the equipment, but now I'd like to call on the Honorable Judge Karen Cassidy, the assignment judge here in Union County, who is going to give us a presentation concerning what's coming down the pike from the state. For those of you who are aware, the state has enacted what they call criminal justice reform. It is effective January 1st of next year, but it's going to take coordination between the county and the courts. and the prosecutor's office, so we're very happy to have the judge here tonight to give us an overview of where we are and where we're headed. Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome. Before I start with the PowerPoint presentation, I do want to thank you all for allowing me to come here and make this presentation. What will be happening in the next year will impact all of us. And we've been having monthly meetings in my chambers with representatives of the county, the sheriff's department, your county council, the county prosecutor, the county manager, because this is a partnership that we will be engaging in between the judiciary and the various stakeholders, not only in the county, but with all of our municipalities here in Union County. And as I went through these various meetings and discussed things, I realized that it was important, especially with the budget hearings coming up, that the Freeholder Board have a basic understanding of what criminal justice reform will entail and what obligations we have as a judiciary and you folks as a county have with the various offices that you have in the jail, et cetera, to implement what is coming. So I will not be as entertaining as the bagpiper, but I do hope that this presentation, which can be a little bit dry, but I'm going to skip through a lot of the slides that I have that get really to the nitty-gritty, but I just want to give you that overview. I have brought with me a few of my staff that in case questions do come up and they are maybe better equipped to answer them, they will do that and assist me. Well, the prosecutor did come tonight in case there are questions that come up, but I know Prosecutor Park will be incorporating a lot of what's necessary in terms of implementing this with her office as part of her budget presentation, so I'm not going to dwell a lot on that. I know the sheriff was here. His office is also going to be impacted, as will the jail, and I'm sure, again, you'll be hearing more details from them. But from the judiciary, I have my criminal division manager, Bernadette Fiore. I have my assistant criminal division manager, Robert Eppenstein, and also Judge Mega, who is our presiding criminal judge. We are all talking about this literally every single day because things are coming up, it's evolving. So what I'm telling you today is basic information, but I just want to make sure you all understand that during the course of the next 9 months before this really, or 10 months, I guess, before it comes into effect, there are going to be lots of new pieces of information coming that may change some of what I say tonight, but I think the basics will all be the same. And when I'm done with the slides, I am going to briefly touch upon how this is going to impact each of the county organizations that I briefly referred to now, so you have an understanding of what, again, you may be hearing about, and that includes even facilities issues in terms of our courthouse complex and what may be necessary and what things may be coming from the judiciary as we move forward. So we'll start with the first slide. Okay, what this presentation is going to show you is give you kind of a brief understanding of what this new law is, the new bail law. I'm not going to go through a lot of the screens that show what your law enforcement personnel and things are going to be doing, but there's a lot of new electronic filings and information exchanges that are going to be happening that is going to kind of come into what the prosecutor's office, sheriff's department, jail is going to need in terms of accessing some of the new interfaces that we have with our criminal justice system, the partnerships, again, that we have, as well as, if you have any questions. If you have a question while I'm on a slide, feel free if you want to raise your hand. I'll try and address it if it's fresh in your mind, or if we want to wait till the end, also acceptable to me. Okay, so let me turn to how this is going to work. Currently, all persons that are charged with an offense in New Jersey, that's the next slide, I'm sorry, are entitled to be released on a monetary bail system. We're based on money. That's regardless of their criminal history or the threat that they pose to society. So it's a resource-based system. In other words, unless there's no bail, which is very rare that happens, when a bail is set, if someone has the financial means to satisfy that bail, and they can then be released from custody. But defendants who do not have the financial means to satisfy their bail will remain in custody. And I'll tell you right now, because we're doing this almost, daily, there are people that are in your jail on very small bails, $250, $500, that are in there for crimes that are not of any magnitude. If you're going to set a $250 bail on someone, normally it's not a crime that's really, that they pose a significant risk to society. And these are people that are incarcerated there now. So what we are dealing with, and what the Chief Justice and what the legislation that has been passed was designed to do, is to change how we look at who we place in custody pre-trial before they're adjudicated of their various offenses. So, next slide. This was an initiative that was part of our legislature. The Chief Justice, as well as other stakeholders within the state of New Jersey and the governor's office, etc., decided that it was time to change how we detain people pre-trial. Legislation was enacted. That legislation has gone through the vetting of, both houses of our legislature, signed by the governor, and a constitutional amendment was placed to our voters in the state of New Jersey, who have approved this new system in terms of how we're going to deal with our defendants. So what we do now is money. What we're going to be doing in the future is known as a risk assessment, and that's what I'm going to get into. And I know some of it may be foreign to you. Some of you who are attorneys may be somewhat familiar with some of the terminology. I'm going to try to, make it as understandable as possible. But we as a judiciary, we see this every day, and many of the people that, work in your jail or that the prosecutor's office sees as well, they're dealing with these issues on a daily basis now. So what we are doing now is changing. It's a sea change, changing the way we look at things. As of January of 2017, we are required now to do a risk assessment and have recommendations placed, or recommendations on conditions of release for every single eligible defendant that's arrested in the state of New Jersey. This risk assessment is required to be objective and standardized. It's going to be developed based on empirical data. Relevant to their risk of failure to appear, as well as danger to the community. So just, as I said earlier, when you're dealing with a monetary bail, someone could be charged with a heinous crime, be extremely risky to society. A judge could set an enormously high bail. If they make it, they could be out on the street. What we're doing now is we're factoring in that danger as part of the risk assessment, so it's not necessarily you have the cash and you will be able to get out. An eligible defendant beginning in January of 17 will be someone where was issued a warrant, was issued, and the eligible defendant, as you'll see later, is someone who will be committed to the jail. A risk assessment, next slide, will be required to be completed and presented to the court so we can make a pretrial release determination. That has to be done within 48 hours. And you'll see why that's important later on in terms of what your commitment will be. The chief has said he wants it within 24 hours. At this point, I'm going to tell you right now that that's a real lofty goal, especially when we're trying to work out the kinks at the beginning. But ultimately, that's what they say they would like to achieve. And as I said earlier, a constitutional amendment allows a judge to detain eligible defendants upon the motion of the prosecutor. Therefore, high-risk defendants who have the financial means to post monetary bail will no longer be allowed to do so. We have been charged, and as you can see on this slide, the state administrative director has established and maintained now what is going to be known as a pretrial services unit. That will be the unit charged with doing these risk assessments and making recommendations to the court in terms of detention of these individuals. So when you look at, next slide, what bail reform is, it really is a sea change in terms of how we do things. The law envisions that most people will be released on their own recognizance, that's ROR, or on certain non-monetary conditions. There is a recognition that too many defendants are held due to a lack of financial means, and that's why we're addressing this situation. And there's also now a recognition that some defendants should be detained regardless of their financial means to post bail. Next slide. There will be court rules that are going to be revised, and new processes are going to be created to address the obligations of this statute. When a complaint warrant is issued, and an eligible defendant is committed to the jail, pretrial services within the Superior Court will review that information, compile and draft a recommendation to assist a judge in making a decision as to whether this individual should be released. If an eligible defendant is released with conditions, pretrial services staff, again employed by the judiciary, will be assigned to monitor those conditions. And the second half of this is if somebody is being detained, in other words, we're not releasing them, they're detained in your jail, we now are going to have various requirements under the speedy trial provisions of the law, which are going to require aggressive timeframes in order for that case to be completed. And I'll get into those timeframes in a minute. But a lot of this involves now substantial work by the prosecutor's office, not only with making determinations on whether somebody should be detained in those hearings, but also the component of we got to get these people to trial. We can't let them languish in the jail. We've got to have a determination made because really there's no means for them to get out. They can't, in other words, satisfy bail and be out. So we need to get those trials conducted as quickly as possible. Next slide. Speedy trial applies to someone who is an eligible defendant where there was a complaint warrant issued. The arrest occurred after January of 17. The initial charge involved an indictable or a disorderly persons offense, and the defendant is detained pursuant to the pretrial detention provisions of the bail law, and detained in jail due to an inability to post monetary bail. That would be some type of a condition, but that's going to be very rare. It doesn't apply now to people who were charged on a warrant before January 1 of 17, or for those where a summons is issued. Now I can go through speedy trial time standards real quickly. That's on the next slide. In other words, when someone goes to the jail now, if they have to be detained, the prosecutor has to indict them within 90 days, including excludable time. Excludable time is basically, and I'll get to that later, things that not the prosecutor is doing, but what the defense attorney is doing to cause delay. It's not something the prosecutor can rely upon. And in terms of post-indictment, an eligible defendant who's been indicted shall not remain in jail for more than 180 days on that charge following the return or unsealing of the indictment, whichever is later, not counting, again, the excludable time before the commencement of the trial. Next slide. So overall, 2 years, not counting excludable time attributable to the defendant, and the prosecutor is not ready to proceed to trial. An eligible defendant shall be released from jail on ROR or conditions set by the court if within 2 years after the court's issuance of a pretrial detention order, excluding any delays attributable to that defendant, the prosecutor is not ready to proceed to voir dire, which means jury selection, or to the opening of their case, or hearing of any motions. So this really speeds up a lot of things that their office has to do in order to get these cases ready to proceed to the Superior Court. Let me just take you back now to that assessment that needs to be done, and this is going to, again, involve some cost on behalf of the county. Right now, we're in the process of building what's known as a risk assessment, which will be a system to interview, communicate, supervise, assist the judges, staff, and attorneys in meeting the requirements of the statute. The PSA is going to provide judges with objective, data-driven information about the risk that a defendant poses if they're released before trial. And you see that there's basically many, many factors that go into it, but the most significant are the likelihood that they'll be rearrested or reoffend for a new violent crime, failure to appear in court. And if you look, and I'm not going to read all of these, but basically the risk assessment is based on all of these factors that are located on the next slide. It's a very complex system, and just so you know, this is not something we're making up in the state of New Jersey. This is being used in other states, Arizona, Kentucky, District of Columbia, and we're basing a lot of what we're doing on their systems that have been tried and true and have worked. So it's not something that is untested, though obviously it will be tested a little bit once it's implemented here. When we get to the point of getting this risk assessment, there's a lot of data that we need. And again, this is going to go to some things that your jail, sheriff's department, and prosecutor's office is going to need. Computerized data that comes and gets brought into that system to assess this person. And again, if you look at the data sources, I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are all systems that are in place now that we need to cull information from and provide to the court in making a determination in terms of the risk. So looking at now, just taking it at a very basic level, what happens when somebody gets arrested? We're going to look at, I think it's slide 15, municipal court process. Two things happen in our state when someone gets arrested in terms of how the charges are going to be filed. They can be put on a complaint summons or a complaint warrant. Right now, somebody gets arrested, the police department looks at the nature of the charge, and along with findings of probable cause, which can be done by a court administrator in a municipality or by the municipal court judge, they determine whether or not somebody's going to be charged on a summons or be charged on a warrant. Just so you know right off the bat, I'm not, again, going to get into educating you on all these factors, but when you get charged on a summons right now, they're not going to come to the jail, they're going to be released, and there's a process that'll be in place for them, but that's really a very simple thing. You're charged on a summons, they're going to be released from custody, and they're not subject to the new bail law. When the bail law is impacted, it's when they are charged on a warrant. And in looking at the factors that are going to be utilized to determine whether it's a summons or a warrant, the Attorney General has not yet released what those factors will be. Correct? You haven't gotten anything, Prosecutor Park. I know they're still working on it. There are various guidelines the Attorney General is going to issue. But being charged on a warrant is what sets everything into motion. So if they get charged on a warrant, and usually, as you can imagine, those are rather significant charges, and also a risk assessment will be given to the municipal courts at that time to make the decision. That sets all of this into play. When that warrant is issued, there's not, and we've got some vignettes which I'm not going to play for you, but normally somebody gets arrested and they get a warrant, and the first thing they're going to say is, okay, I'm going to call my parent, my spouse, my best friend, how much money do I need to have to get out of jail? The answer to that will now be, you're not. You're now going to the jail. You're on a warrant, you're going to the jail. And you will probably be there for 48 hours until we can get that detention hearing or that risk assessment done. So there is no longer any bail, monetary bail that's going to be assessed. And that's the first thing that's really a sea change in terms of what the population is going to see. Now, I can't say how that's going to work in terms of how many warrants versus how many summonses, but the fact that somebody's going to be transported to the jail is going to make a municipal judge, a police officer, the municipal court administrator looking at a risk assessment, having to make that decision and knowing that somebody's going to be in jail for 48 hours, that's a pretty significant part of what's going to be happening with this bail reform. So there's an anticipation that there's going to be a lot more summonses now, especially if somebody's really not a high risk initially, but I can't really tell you that right off the bat until we kind of see how things are playing out. But the thing you need to know, walking into your jail, there's going to be a lot more initial people who aren't getting out by walking to a window and paying 10% or going to a bail bondsman. That is not going to happen anymore. Once they get to your jail, the clock starts ticking. That 48 hours starts ticking. And in that 48-hour period, a lot of things are going to happen. That's going to involve your sheriff's department, your jail, the prosecutor's office, and the judiciary within a 48-hour period. I'm trying to skip through some of these factors. So on slide 18, one of the things that's really critical is the fingerprint process. There's something called live scan, which I'm sure the prosecutor and the jail are going to speak to in the sheriff's department. Every municipality, I think, in our county, we're very fortunate, has live scan. They may not have the most up-to-date one, and we're working with them to get that. But when that person gets fingerprinted on live scan, all those things that I was talking about, data sources, start coming into the system, and that's how we build our risk assessment. Who is this person? What's their history? What's their criminal history? And all of the assessments are based upon that initial fingerprinting. Your jail, for example, let's say somebody's picked up in Garwood and their live scan's down. We need to make sure that when they get to the jail, they get that live scan done. Your jail needs to have an updated live scan because it's critical, again, to that 48-hour process. And as I said, I think we're very lucky in this county. A lot of things which other counties are struggling with, fortunately, I think we're ahead of the curve here, and a lot of what's around and available we already have. And that's the fingerprinting process is really key. And once that fingerprinting is done in your local municipalities, that's again how one of the determinations that's going to be made in all of those towns. Is there a warrant? Is there a summons? Because that's how they're going to draw their material. Now, you see like a lovely picture of a fingerprint on, I think it's slide 19. You know, that's kind of just what it's going to look like, what's going to be presented to your law enforcement people. Once that live scan, and this is slide 20, is done, law enforcement can select the appropriate fingerprint complaint records. They can populate all the necessary computerized screens that are necessary in order to draft their complaint. They can process the arrest record. They can get DNA information. It's really going to improve the completeness of the criminal history, as thousands and thousands of cases are going to be able to be flagged, if need be, and incorporated into this arrest record that this defendant will have. Let's see, now look at slide. Now, I'm not going to go through again all of these particular slides that show all of the law enforcement tools. But again, and you know what, I thought of this today, and I had never thought of this before, is your county police department. Now, I'm assuming much of what I'm talking about here is available and active within your county police department in terms of the drafting of the complaints, the ECDR. I don't know if Prosecutor Park, I'm assuming we're okay with that. But again, all of this now, you know, you're used to sitting and seeing police officers, you know, sitting, writing, typing. It's all going to be something in the past. Everything's going to be computerized now, and we need to get up to speed. And for the most part, our departments are. But the critical thing that's going to happen now is they're going to land in your jail, and in 48 hours, our staff then begins the process of working up this risk assessment for this hearing that's going to occur with the prosecutor's office in 48 hours and with one of our judges. What's going to happen at that time? Luckily, again, you have a jail, courtroom. So we don't have to worry about transporting people across the street to the courthouse and to one of my judges. We're going to have, and we're permitted to have by the statute, a municipal court judge sit and do this initial hearing on most cases. I think homicides and maybe some other cases may have to be a superior court judge. But that has to be done within 48 hours. What does that mean for you? That means that courtroom is going to have to be open on a weekend because 48 hours, if they're arrested on Friday, we have to get it done. And again, we're going to have to work out the kinks, but probably on Saturday, we're going to be doing it. I'm hoping not both days. I'm hoping just one day during the weekend. But if there's a 3-day weekend, you're going to have to be open on a holiday because we're going to have to be in there doing these various hearings. So that's something that you have to be mindful of. You're going to have, and I've talked with the sheriff a little bit about this, transportation issues, because again, nobody's going to be bailing out in one of your municipalities and coming back here on a notice if they have a warrant. The sheriff's department's going to need to pick them up and get them to the jail. I've talked with Sheriff Cryan. He has a transportation. He's talked with the municipalities. He has something in mind. He says, you know, usually he's going to have to do probably 2 pickups a day. Again, it's not going to be every municipality, but some are going to have more than others. Weekends might be a little bit, or nights are going to be a little bit tough. Do they have holding cells in some of our smaller municipalities, or is he going to have to get out there and get people? Again, another factor in terms of the expenses and costs that are going to be done. And I've talked to the new jail director, Ron Charles, and his upfront processing is going to be a lot more intense. He's going to probably have a lot more people coming in, but there may be a lot more people exiting. And I know one of the comments I got before I even made my presentation tonight is, you know, well, what ultimately is what is going to be the cost in terms of even the jail? We're hoping at some point your population is going to go down. You're only going to be detaining those people who are really serious risks in that facility, in addition to people maybe that are sentenced to jail, but I'm talking about pretrial individuals now. And we're hoping with the risk assessments and the monitoring tools that we're going to be implementing that there are going to be less people in there. But believe me, the first 6 months or a year that this is in place, there's going to be a lot of testing going on. The prosecutor is going to be doing their job in terms of arguing for detention for certain individuals. The public defender is going to be arguing, of course, that they want more people out with the monitoring tools. I can't tell you how that's ultimately going to shake out, because probably there's going to need to be some appellate review of those decisions. But I would guess after approximately a year, we're going to have a rhythm, we're going to have an understanding, we're going to know kind of who's in and who's out. But that's why I said a few minutes ago, we're doing it now. You know, we're looking at who's in your jail with very small bail and thinking those are the types of people that you're no longer going to be having there. And the people who are in there on first or second degree charges, maybe they're more likely to be there. And it's going to depend, too, on what we're going to be doing in terms of ultimately monitoring these people and how comfortable the prosecutor's office will be in terms of permitting people to be out on the street as opposed to being detained. If you want to just skip up to slide 34. We are trying to be more efficient. And I think one of the things you're going to hear from the prosecutor's office is a lot of what we rely upon with paper now, we're going, you know, that's all going to be a thing of the past. When they do their presentation, they're going to advise you of certain things that they've requested in terms of electronic filing from municipalities, because, you know, right now we get the complaints. Elizabeth has, you know, a ton of complaints that'll come in, and we have to wait until they package them and get them to the courthouse to begin the process. We don't have the luxury of waiting to do that. We have to have it sent pretty much at the time that the warrant is issued. So they're working very hard with all of the chiefs of police throughout Union County to get this electronic system in place and available. And again, that's going to be something else you're going to hear about from them, but it is required. We have to do this within 48 hours, because if we don't, we're subjecting these people to getting released without having this assessment done. That's why it's so critical that many of these mechanisms are in place and that we have the opportunity to have a lot of upgrades to what we currently don't have in our system. And that's including the judiciary. I know that you're all seeing all of these dollar signs. We are seeing them as well. And that's why I wanted to just kind of get to a little bit of what types of things, and I don't think I'm going to need the PowerPoint at this point anymore. I want to thank you for doing that for me. What types of things we're discussing. As I said, we're having these monthly meetings with all of these stakeholders from the county, and if need be, some of the municipal stakeholders. We are talking about the transportation issue. We're talking about staffing your jail courtroom. We're talking about your public works department, because facilities are going to need to be opened on weekends and holidays, and how that's going to impact it. We're talking about the jail and what's going to be happening there in terms of making sure that they can process these inmates and get them in. We're also talking about what's going to be needed with the courts. Part of what I was talking about earlier is the speedy trial component. We've got to try these cases quickly. I'm not getting any more judges. I have 7 judges who are sitting in the criminal division right now. I've been told that if I've got to move these cases, I've got to pull judges from other divisions to try them. And I'm going to have to pull them, you know, civil or family or whatever, and get them over and make them criminal judges to move them. Well, what does that mean? If I've got more judges, there's going to be more prosecutors that need to be trial ready to move those cases. It means that even though I have a new courthouse and I'm going to have some empty courtrooms, Frank Guzzo and I have had a discussion. I said, okay, I've got plenty of courtrooms that I need a jury box that's got, 14 seats in it. I've got civil jury boxes that have 8 seats in them. Like, we're going to have to do a survey of our courts. What courtrooms can I convert rather easily, and believe me, there are a few of them that can pretty easily accommodate them, but then we've got the security component. I've talked with the sheriff. Okay, if I'm going to do a trial in the rotunda where I've got family court cases, civil court cases, and a lot of people, and I've got an inmate in custody, what are the security concerns about transporting those individuals into those courtrooms? Where do we house them? That wasn't really designed to be necessarily a criminal court building. And maybe we want to look at our annex building, which houses the majority of our criminal judges. And there's, for example, one courtroom in there that, you know what, if it looks like, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it looks like I'm going to have a lot more criminal judges, we might need to make, again, not a wholesale change, but build a jury box up there with 12 people. It was a juvenile court. There's not a jury box. So we can try criminal cases there. And we have the pathway, you know, from the jail into the courthouse where we're not pulling them on the streets, et cetera. I'm just trying to give you an idea of things that might percolate up to you. They may or may not happen. But, you know, we're looking at the security of our public who's in our courthouse and transporting prisoners around there that normally we're not seeing in those facilities. So these are just the kinds of things we're looking at. Jury space. More criminal trials, more jurors. I appreciate that we're now moving forward and getting hopefully some, you know, moving off the dime very quickly now. It's been approved to get that jury space on the first floor of the annex. That is fabulous. We're going to be able to get more jurors in a more comfortable environment and in a building where they're not walking around outside and are servicing, again, those judges that are in that building who are trying all of these criminal cases, because I do anticipate probably some more trials as we move forward. So there's lots of things that are going to be coming down the pike in the next year. Right now there are 3 pilot counties, Morris, Passaic, and Camden, who are gradually working out all of these logistical issues and things that are going to be happening with the risk assessment and how we're going to do these hearings in 48 hours. So by the time I'm hoping we see this in January, a lot of the things that I'm hoping need to be worked out will be worked out there and not have to be worked out here. I will say that I've received nothing but cooperation from everybody that works with you folks, Mr. Fayella, Sheriff Cryan, the prosecutor, you know, because as I said, it's a partnership. And we know that there's going to be a lot of questions and issues. And I'm not saying that there's not going to be some difficulties and some hard decisions that need to be made. And as I've said to Mr. Fayella at every meeting, and Mr. Barry's been there too, I'm here to talk with you. That's why I'm here tonight. I'm here to answer any questions. Unfortunately, I can't financially tell you that this is going to be something easy for you. It's not easy for the judiciary either. We've got 15 more people that we're incorporating into our payroll. That's a cost to the judiciary. There's facilities issues. There's all kinds of things. But I know the ultimate goal in this case is to make our criminal justice system much better than it is. And actually, there's been a lot of press. I know the Times even was reporting in New York City. This is a discussion that's going on there in terms of detention at Rikers Island. And all of these people that are in your jail, that, you know, when they're in jail and they can't make $250 bail and they're sitting in there, they can't be out looking for a job. They can't be out trying to support a family. There's a lot of things that by sitting in there is a real problem for people who really, if you look in the scheme of things, are not a real risk to society. That's what we're trying, that's one thing we're trying to correct, and we're also trying to have people adjudicated as quickly as possible. We have a constitutional right to a speedy trial in this country, and what we're trying to accomplish by this criminal justice reform is to do that for the members of the public. It's not good to have criminal cases hanging around. They only usually get worse with age. I'm sure the prosecutor probably would attest to that. So there's a lot of things that are coming into play, and I so appreciate the fact that you've given me the opportunity to just kind of give you an overview of how things are going to work as we move forward. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Or you can also, even when we have our monthly meetings, you're all welcome to come. If there's anything that you seem to, be really interested in, I'm sure we send out an agenda ahead of time. If you want to see it ahead of time and say, you know what, that might be something I'd like to listen to, be my guest. We welcome any input that you can give us. And again, I appreciate the time that you've given me this evening, and if there are any questions, feel free. Yes?
Thank you.
Go ahead, go right ahead. Go ahead, Mr.
No, I was just going to say, thank you, Judge. Are there any questions?
Oh, okay.
First of all, you spoke about, if I may, first of all, thank you all for being here and your staff as well, and Judge Mega. You spoke about the system that's going to be utilized in terms of the computer system.
Correct.
I worked for the state for numerous years. I
Right.
know their ability to deliver on a system that normally works is usually 15 years behind everybody else's
Yeah, we still have
systems.
black screens with like
Yes,
green on them
right.
in the judiciary, but
So the question is, are we doing this in the state system or our own system being integrated with the state system?
it is the state system, and you're being integrated into our system. So the prosecutors, PD, jail, sheriff's department, municipalities are all going to be part of our system. And it's being developed now over the course of, a few years. We've been trying to get electronic filing done, but there's basically, at this point in time, people working 24/7 to make this happen. We've made, I can't even tell you, it's amazing to me how quickly they've been able to develop all of this. And as I said, some of, like the risk assessment tool, there's a group called Luminosity, you're probably familiar with them, they worked with the jail, they are the group that is doing the risk assessment tool. And they have in place risk assessment tools from these other states that have used them. So it's not like they're creating it from scratch, they're tailoring it to what our needs and our statutes are. But in terms of that, it's not like from square one. So you will be using our systems. So, and they're telling me they're going to be ready.
Okay.
So I'm anticipating they will be.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
The new family courthouse, which I hope we're going to be going to an opening before too long.
Right.
How does that fit into the new system?
Not really at all, other than because that's going to be strictly for family court matters. I don't anticipate that being utilized for any of the hearings or things that we're going to be doing here. What it is doing is freeing up courtroom space in this complex because we're moving to that complex. So there's going to be 6 courtrooms that are freed up. However, I think you folks are all aware of all of the renovation work that's being done in our current facility. So it's not like I automatically have 6 courtrooms because the rotunda is going to be closed for that fire suppression and all that stuff, and then eventually the tower will be closed. So I'm trying to make it short. It's a kind of complex situation, but it will hopefully give us some room to create those maybe additional courtrooms, at least temporarily, because we'll have some additional courtrooms when we move.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Any other questions?
No?
Thank you, Judge Cassidy. We
Okay.
appreciate it, and I'm sure if we have questions, you'll be hearing from us.
I'm sure you will. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Well, people don't stay, people can really afford,
Okay, we're going to move on to our regular agenda. We have first the Office of the Union County Clerk. Deputy County Clerk is here.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. The Office of the Union County Clerk has 2 resolutions on this evening for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Freeholder? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Freeholders. Have a good evening.
Sheriff Crine is next.
Thank you, Freeholders, for the opportunity to be considered. This is an investment in our range. When you go to our facility, this is the facility on your left, our 25-yard range. It's an upgrade that hasn't been done in over 3 decades. This is a capital project that's been funded before, it's been previously funded dollars. And the intention here is this is a facility that's used by both the public and law enforcement agencies. Over 700 members of the public have been certified through this range and its use, as well as remediation opportunities through law enforcement agencies as well. If I can answer any questions.
Any questions? Freeholder Mirabella.
Mr. Chairman, not necessarily a question, but a comment. Last time I was up at the pistol range, I had the opportunity to tour the facility with the sheriff, and the updates are sorely needed, and probably a long time coming. I'm glad you put this together, Sheriff, for us and improve that facility. Appreciate it.
I need to give a shout out to Tom Minio and his group in particular for their assistance.
Thank you, Freeholder. Anybody else?
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Department of Administrative Services, Acting Director Michael Yuska.
Good evening, members of the board. Administrative Services has 3 resolutions for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Freeholders, any questions? I have one just concerning resolution number 1.
Yes, sir.
Could you just explain what that is?
Well, we're mandated to keep a pool of, well, we're not mandated to do this. I'm sorry, let me start over. So we spend about $4 million a year on our workman compensation payments. What this is a float that we let our risk manager, D&H, have on hand at a bank in case they need to expedite payments instead of making wire transfers. These are not payments to this company, to D&H. These are settlements to the doctors when the cases are settled.
So this is not additional money, this is just making the money available quicker?
Right, it's a float. So if it does go down, say it goes down to $300,000, we would replenish that out of our funds for the workman's comp.
Very good, thank you.
It's a tool.
Freeholder Mirabella.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, could you talk a little bit about number 3? I just need a little bit more information. I'm not really familiar with this kind of a request.
Absolutely. So Rawway Travel has been our partner for, I believe, about 15 years now. When we go out for RFP, because this is an exception to bidding, travel and conferences are an exception to bidding. We rarely get any other responses except for Rawway Travel, and they are a Union County firm. That said, the biggest part of this $65,000 pass-through is extradition for the sheriff and cases for the prosecutor, about 85% of that $65,000 figure that you see. And for all the bookings that they do, all the hotels, all the airlines, changing schedules sometimes because the officers can't travel, for all that, the Rawway Travel gets about $3,000. Last year they made about $2,600.
I just don't usually see where the profit margin of a particular vendor is important for the consideration here.
Well, I tried to, it really is for auditing purposes, because if you looked up Rawway Travel on our system, on our electronic system, it would say that we paid them $65,000. However, most of it is the pass-through, actually paying the airlines that they pay for us to make the thing. So I wanted to try the best as I could to show you what the value of the contract was to Rawway Travel.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Director. Department of Economic Development, Acting Director Amy Wagner.
Good evening. The Department of Economic Development has 1 resolution for your consideration, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Amy, can you elaborate on the resolution, please?
Absolutely. We already have an MOU in place. It's a requirement of the state to have the MOU in place between the Freeholder Board and the Workforce Development Board. All that this does, the only change is that it changes where they refer to the Workforce Investment Board, it changes that to the Workforce Development Board, and where it refers to the one-stops, it now refers to the American Job Centers, and this is just the new language that came into play when there was a change from the Workforce Investment Act of 1998 to the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act of 2014.
Thank you, Director. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Move on to Engineering, Public Works, and Facilities Management, Director Joseph Graziano.
Good evening, Chairman, Freeholders. I have 14 items on the agenda tonight for your consideration, and I'll try and answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Freeholder Hudak.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Joe.
Good
Number
evening.
6, what does a on-call energy consultant do?
What we use, we've used T&M before. We used them last year for our on-call energy. The contract last year was the same amount, $15,000. We didn't spend the whole $15,000 last year. What we use them on is, we use them on helping us procure natural gas, electricity through our third-party vendors, and getting those bids done for us. And that's basically what this contract is used for right now. Last year, we saved, I think, $28,000, or we got $28,000 in SRECs back on the solar stuff. So that's, it's kind of a give and take. We usually make some money on it. Last year, we only spent, I think, $5,000 on the contract, a little more than $5,000 on their $15,000 contract.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chairman.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Department of Human Services, Director Frank Guzzo.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The department has 8 resolutions on, and I'll be happy to answer your questions you have at this time.
Freeholder Kowalski.
Thank you. Director, could you explain a little bit more about 1 and 2, what this grant funding would be used for?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. 1 and 2 relate directly to rides and the paratransit system. Number 1, it's actually new money that we've applied for. It adds $240,000, plus there's a 20% match, which is about $48,000, and that will help us provide curb-to-curb services for individuals 60 and over and persons with disabilities in our paratransit system. So it's new money into the system at a time when we obviously can use new money based on the casino revenue continuing to be in the spiral downwards. The second one is the JARC money, which is the Job Access and Reverse Commute dollars. We use that, as you all know, because of the Route 22 shuttle that we put in place in 2007, actually, now. That provides employment, takes individuals to employment and employment-related activities on Route 22, which is, as you know, can be quite busy at times. So it usually goes on the Union, Springfield, Kenilworth area. We do about 6,000 one-way rides annually on that, monthly on that system alone.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Thank
if I may, not that I want to stay up here any longer than anyone wants me to, but the thing that I just want to call your attention to is number 5 on the agenda, because I think it's rather important. That $60,000 that you see, which is a contract with Proceed, is a pass-through from the state of New Jersey. And if you recall...
just to be clear, number 6 you're...
Oh, wait a minute, let me make sure we're on that. I've got one and you've got probably another. 6.
6, yeah.
Yes, 6.
Okay,
What
thank you.
this does, this is the money, if you recall, in December of last year, Commissioner of Human Service came out in the paper, basically tried to blame the county's welfare agencies to help create and continue homelessness. And as a result of that, they came up with a plan as they reduced benefits for individuals that they would case manage them back into homes. So that $60,000 that you see is the state's way to case manage people back into homes when, of course, there are not enough rentals and there are not enough housing to begin with in Union County and the state of New Jersey for that population. So this is that attempt that they put in the paper. As you know, we wrote a letter to the commissioner complaining about the way that she pushed back on the counties for that. So that's that $60,000, and we'll be interested and report back to you on how effective that's been as time goes on.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Department of Parks and Recreation, Director Zuber.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Freeholders. Department of Parks and Recreation has 8 items on tonight's agenda for your consideration. I'll try to answer any questions you have.
Any questions, Freeholders? Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Office of the County Council, Mr. Barry.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. The Office of the County Council has 3 items on the written agenda this evening. I would ask your indulgence for one additional item. I'd be proposing a resolution which would be rescinding an award of contract relative to the paving. Circumstances arose where the lowest bidder did not qualify, and we're going to have to rebid on that particular item. I'll be happy to answer any questions on that matter or the 3 matters on the agenda.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Barry.
Welcome.
At this time, do any freeholders have any additional resolutions to add to next week's agenda, or any friendly amendments on the...
Freeholder Carter.
Motion made by Freeholder Mirabella, seconded by Freeholder Carter. Clerk of the Board, please call the roll.
Freeholder Carter?
Yes.
Freeholder Estrada?
Yes.
Freeholder Hudak?
Aye.
Freeholder Jallo?
Aye.
Freeholder Kowalski?
Yes.
Freeholder Mirabella?
Aye.
Freeholder Wright?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Granados?
Aye.
And Chairman Bergen.
Yes.
Chairman, you have 9 votes in the affirmative.
Thank you. County Council, is there anything to announce as a result of the executive session?
Nothing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I just, I failed before to indicate that I may have an additional resolution concerning a potential grant award, so if we could add that as well. Thank you. And now may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you. We're adjourned.